This is happening! Hey guys, it's Adam here, and I'm here as always with Alex. In today's video, we're going to be talking all about springtails and isopods. I am really happy to announce I have a bioactive kit from the Bio Dude sitting right here in my house. It's the Terra Sahara substrate kit for a 40-gallon enclosure. I actually have a story at the end of the video if you want to check it out. It's really cool how this whole thing came together. I'm really excited to get this thing up and running. Of course, we're not quite ready to put it in. I just changed the substrate out maybe a month ago, so I'm gonna wait till the sand is ready to get changed out, and then we'll put the bioactive soil in there. And I won't go into a lot of detail about bioactivity. That'll be in another video, and there'll be lots of videos to come. But most people, when they get their kit, you know, if you follow the dude's instructions, you know, you put your soil and your stuff in there and your cleanup crew and all that good stuff. And usually there's about a 2-month waiting period while your soil has to kind of develop. What I'm thinking is the smart thing to do is I have about 2-3 months before I'm going to change this out. So I'm going to set up my springtail and isopod culture now and hope that they breed and multiply so that when it comes time to populate my tank, we can jumpstart that and put that 2-month period down to maybe a couple of weeks. I'll divert you to my whiteboard drawing here. So the basic makeup is you have your substrate and your leaf litter layer on the top, of course your plants, and then, you know, deep within the soil, you're also going to want to put some biodegradables, your sphagnum moss, your leaf litter, your cork bark pieces. There's lots of other things. You don't have to use what I'm using, but just organic material that those bugs will eat. It also gives them moist pockets to sort of colonize on. It gives them good healthy nutrition so they can multiply as fast as possible. So we're basically going to recreate that today with our isopod culture. We're going to do a mini version of it in a tub. They're going to hopefully multiply, and then when we go bioactive, we're going to just make the substrate look pretty much the same. I've done lots of research on the internet on how to put these cultures together. And I believe that the way I'm doing it today is going to give me the best chance of success when it comes time to go bioactive for real. So, enjoy. Alright guys, I've been waiting for this for a long time. So today's the day. We're going to get this whole thing set up. And I just want to go over all the stuff that I'm going to be using for this. So to start off, of course, we got the BioDude Zone, Terra Sahara. I figured if we're going to set up an isopod culture, we might as well make it as realistic as we can to the actual enclosure that we're setting it up in. So that's what we're going to be using as the base substrate. Some of the biodegradables we're going to be putting in here is, of course, his AAA spag moss. We're going to mix some of that in there. I've got his hard wood leaf litter. And in addition to that, I went out back in my yard. I have a red maple tree back there. I collected some of these red maple leaves, which I threw in the oven at 200 degrees for about 45 minutes to make sure they're disinfected. We've got a couple just small bark pieces. These are cork bark. I don't know, I was just ordering some stuff, so I thought I'd pick those up. You can always just get regular cork bark and break those down into smaller pieces. We're going to bury that deep into the substrate where the springtails can get to it. And see what else. Of course, we got the little bio shot to go into that substrate there. We have our 7-ounce Sterilite container with the locking lid. And of course, I drilled a little bit of vent holes in the top of that thing. So that's what we're going to be putting them in. And then just some other odds and ends. Of course, cleanup crew themselves. These are some powder blue isopods, and I picked these up at the local pet store. There's only around 6 or 8 isopods in this container, so I actually got 2 cultures of those, so I'm going to be adding those into the culture. I have our springtails. These are the temperate species, which do a little bit better in a drier environment, so that's why I got these from Josh's Frogs. So that's our big springtail culture we're going to be putting in there. And of course I have a couple different cork bark pieces which I'm going to lay in there to give them somewhere to to hide and to keep it moist for them. Of course, I've got my distilled water, so we're going to need to make this thing moist and spray things down. You should have your distilled water in there. And last but not least, my scissors to open everything up. So we're going to get started putting this thing together. Of course, you don't have to use everything that I'm using. I'm giving a little bit of variety because this is what I have. A lot of this stuff came with the kit for the actual bioactive setup in the enclosure. So I'm only going to be using a little bit for the culture itself. So let's get started with this. Okay, so we're starting with our 7-ounce Sterilite. Just make sure you give that a good wash and clean before you use it, just to make sure there's nothing in there that could be detrimental to your colony. And then we're going to go ahead and open up this bag. Terra Sahara. Now, I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to actually use. I'm not going to use the whole bag for sure. But I want to probably go up to about the halfway point of this container. So we're just going to go ahead and start dumping some of that in there. And let's see what we got here. Maybe a little bit more than that. That looks pretty good to start with. We can always add more later if we need to. And we do want to get this moist, but before we do that, I just want to add a few more things. So we got our BioShot. Now this whole thing is for an entire 6-quart bag, and we only used about a third of it. So I'm not going to dump all of this in. I'm just going to dump maybe half. And we'll just kind of spread that around in there like that. Something like that. And this is, I mean, I'm not going to try and be a scientist here, but this basically jumpstarts your bioactive culture. It has got the funguses and the good stuff that your dirt needs to go. So we're just going to mix that around, mix that in. And I am not planning on using anywhere close to this entire bag of spag moss. It gets pretty humid up here in Pennsylvania in summertime, so this holds moisture in the soil. Now it also feeds your isopods, so you do want to add some, and this is probably like way more than I need right here, but I'm just going to get that. And what you want to do is you want to mist this down and get it a little bit moist before we go ahead and mix that into the dirt. So just give that a good spray down. So I'm going to mix some of this in to the soil just to get it down into all the layers, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of a patch on the top when we're done, just to have like a moister area, because these guys do like it nice and damp where they live. So that feels pretty good. You know, we're not wringing any water out, but I can feel it's nice and damp the whole way through. So I'm probably going to use something like that. And I'm going to leave this pile off to the side to add to the top later. So we'll just spread that out a little bit. And then I'm going to grab some distilled water. And I am going to just make sure that this soil gets nice and moist. And again, this is the Terra Sahara, so this stuff should dry out on the top layer and stay nice and moist down in through the lower layers. So I just wanted to get a little bit of that moisture going in the dirt. We'll probably end up adding a little bit more later. Now the leaf litter also, you want to mix some of that, because that is what our isopods like to eat. They like to eat leaves. So I figured the maple aren't quite as thick as your hardwood leaves, like your oak leaves and stuff like that. They're a little bit lighter. They're probably going to break down a little quicker. So I thought I'm probably going to use that whole bag of hardwoods for my bioactive enclosure, the 40-gallon tank. So I didn't want to waste all of my good leaf litter for the culture. So I want to mix this stuff in. This is probably going to break down a lot quicker than the hard oaks will, and I'll just add a couple hardwood leaves up onto the top. So we're going to get that mixed up in, and I believe I want to get this a lot more moist. Get that all mixed up there, and I'm getting a nice aroma of dirt and leaves. This smells like I'm walking through the woods right now. So that's a good natural smell. This is the real stuff, the real deal here. Okay, that's pretty good. See, now I don't want to go too high on the sides because I really don't want any of these guys getting out. So that's why I'm not going too deep. In your enclosure, you'll want a minimum of 3 inches, more like 4 inches is kind of the way to go. As far as your depth, I'm probably sitting at maybe 3 inches. But I don't want them getting up to my lid and escaping because I don't really want isopods getting out into my house. So that's why I'm keeping it down here so low. Alright, so your springtails, now they didn't have any of the palm bark. They recommend the palm bark leaves. They didn't have any of that, so this is another thing you can use. This is just wood and cork bark pieces. I'm going to try and pick some of the smaller ones out here. And you can even break these even smaller yet if you really want to, but I'm just going to stash a couple deep down in the soil. My isopod or my springtails will probably enjoy colonizing on that. So just kind of bury that deep down in, and that will start to rot and decay, and they will have a great place to hide in there. So you can see this is a nice consistency here. Lots of biodegradables that they can access through that. And then I'm not really sure. I was kind of planning on using this bigger one. I think I'm going to use this bigger one. Yeah, let's use the bigger one. Sure. And we'll flip this around like this. So a lot of the isopod cultures I've seen, they got a nice piece of cork, and if you lift that up, usually you'll just see the whole underside just coated with isopods and springtails because they like getting under that damp area there. So that's what we're going to use on the top. I'm going to mix in a few more of these leaves on the top. You want a nice layer of that leaf litter up on the top. And this is my hardwood stuff here. This is the good stuff. I'm going to put a nice layer of hardwood leaves. Not use too much, but you want to make sure you get a nice coverage, just like you're out in the woods. You know, in a forest area, you would have lots of leaves sitting right on the surface of the forest floor, and that gives them plenty of places to hide. And let's throw a little bit more of this maple in there so you can see that is nice and covered. And then of course with your culture, you're going to want one of the sides to be a little bit more moist than the other, especially when you're watering them. You want to keep the soil moist for sure, and you don't want to make the whole container the same consistency. You want to have a more moist side and a more dry side. That way they can kind of determine how wet they want to be, because if you overdo it and it's too wet for them, you can kill them. And if it's too dry, of course, they're not going to thrive either. So it's good to kind of regulate it that way. So you can see right there, that is pretty much what we are looking for right there. And then just a side note, They will eat the leaves, they'll eat the spag moss. That's primarily what they'll feed. You don't actually have to feed them anything. They will do just great just in this. They have lots of stuff to eat. This Rapashi Bug Burger, this is just like an extra supplemental food. So for me, I am trying to get them breeding and reproducing as fast as I can. So this is just some extra proteins and things. I didn't actually read what's in here. But Aquarimax was one of the guys that I'd been sort of picking his brain about how to do isopod cultures, and he feeds this stuff pretty regularly. He'll also throw maybe some carrots or some other kind of vegetation in there occasionally, just to give them something other than the leaves to eat. But if we did nothing with this now for the next 2 months, our isopods should be fine and growing just well in there. So, all that's left here now is to add our bugs. And this is going to be really hard for you guys to see, but you can kind of see this looks pretty similar to how they do it. And actually, I just thought I actually want to mist this down a little more just to get it nice and moist for them. And let's see if we can find some of these powder blue isopods in here. I know they're in here. Oh, there's some. Oh yeah, we got quite a few in here. Can you actually see them in there? Crawling around. Oh yeah, that is a nice culture of springtails, and I'm actually going to dump that right in there. Let them scurry around. And I got another one here, and that carrot has been in there for quite a while, so I think I'm going to just go ahead and let that go out. And let me see. Oh, there's a couple little guys right there on that leaf. Those are pretty small. And I'm not exactly seeing what they're doing either, but I'm just going to dump that whole thing in there just to make sure that they're getting what they need. And I said to myself I wasn't going to do this because I was going to end up having to put leaves on top of that, but here I did. I just dumped them in on top of my leaves. But I will fix that later. So let them scurry around. And last but not least, our springtails. Now your springtails are going to eat the molds and keep the molds and that sort of stuff under control. And these are like a charcoal. This is charcoal. So actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to push some of this off to the side. And I'm actually going to, now you can see those white things on top. Those are actually grains of rice I put in, and they molded up quite quickly. I'm going to dump some of that charcoal right in there. Maybe a little more. And I'm going to keep this culture going, and hopefully I'll have some more. But the way that you actually get these up to the surface is you can fill this whole thing with water and they'll kind of float to the top. Now, because I already moistened my soil, I'm not actually going to do it that way. But I am going to mix that charcoal in with my soil. Forgive me guys, I'm an amateur. So here, what we're actually going to do, I'll take some of these leaves out of here. I'm going to actually mix this in to the soil. Get them all mixed in with my isopods here. And then of course, I'm going to put my leaf litter back on the top so that they can hide in there. And the one thing you just want to make sure you don't do is have something like this where your leaf is sticking out to the lid there, because they'll actually crawl right up this leaf and right out of the enclosure. So you want to make sure that everything gets pushed down in here nice and neat on the edges. And you can see the reason I went with the 7 quart instead of the 6 is the sides are just a little bit higher. So I did not want any chance of these guys escaping. So we're going to go ahead and put that log back in there. And the last thing is this lid. Now I wasn't sure if I should vent this or not, but you can see these tiny little holes. I had the smallest drill bit I could find, and I just made a bunch of tiny holes. That way my springtails cannot actually get out, and certainly my isopods cannot get out through that lid. But there you go. There is a springtail and isopod culture, and I will do an update on this when we go bioactive in Alex's actual enclosure. So I could probably have about 3 months to go before we're ready to switch that out. So that's why I'm starting this now, so that they have some time to reproduce, and hopefully I can seed my tank with a nice healthy springtail and isopod culture, which will be my cleanup crew, and they should take care of the waste very nicely. All right, thanks for watching, guys. All right, guys, it is story time. So about a year ago we got Alex, and I was new to bearded dragon, so I didn't know a lot about how to take care of them or anything like that, but I did do a lot of research. And one of the things that just kept coming up over and over again is bioactive enclosures and the BioDude and all this stuff like that. So, you know, I continued to research, and, you know, I did look into it. I priced it out. And honestly, being in Pennsylvania, shipping is quite expensive. So we're looking at probably $40 to $60 to ship a $50 bag of dirt from Texas up to Pennsylvania. And you know, I was just kind of mulling it over, and I was like, I don't know if I can just justify spending that kind of money, at least right away. I mean, maybe someday we'll figure out a way to pay for it or whatever. But so I just kind of put it on the back burner, put it on the bucket list, and I thought, what are the chances maybe someday a friend of mine or something just happens to be going through Texas and they would be able to swing by and pick up a kit for me randomly. I just had the thought. I didn't tell anybody about it. And wouldn't you know, about a week ago, some friends of mine took a trip down to Texas. And they were down for the week. They were actually helping to rebuild people's homes that were destroyed by Hurricane Harvey. It's crazy to think that 2.5 years later, they're still rebuilding. But they went down just to help out. They were down for the week, and I didn't even think about it. I knew they were going, but I didn't even think about it. And about halfway through the week, I thought, you know, I'm going to text him and just see where exactly they're at in Texas. And as it turns out, they were in Friendswood, Texas, which is 6.5 miles from the BioDude shop down in Houston, Texas. And I was just like, whoa, what are the chances you guys could swing in maybe and pick a box up for me? And I was texting him, and he's like, yeah, we'll see what we can do, but, you know, we're really busy. We only have a week down here, and, you know, our days are kind of full, so we'll see how the week ends up. So, like Friday afternoon, I get this text around lunchtime, and they're like, hey man, we're wrapping up earlier than we thought. Where's this guy at? You know, we'll see if we can swing by. And we worked it all out. I called down to the BioDude Texas. They were awesome. They packed everything up in a box for me. They got it all ready to go, so all they had to do was swing in and pick the box up. And away they go. And that's where we're at right now. So I had no idea. I wasn't even prepared to go bioactive. Like, we just switched out Alex's substrate like a month ago. So we're not even ready to go bioactive just yet. But the stuff's here, guys. We're getting ready to go bioactive. I can't believe it. And, you know, it was probably weird to them because they don't have lizards or anything. They're like, what's this? Why are we picking this dirt up for this dude? But honestly, guys, if you're watching this, you have no idea how cool this is that we can actually do this. And stay tuned. We're going to be making lots of videos about it. But I just want to let you guys know, Quint and all the guys from River of Life, nothing but respect. I owe you guys one. I appreciate it. You didn't have to do that, but they went out of their way and they got it for me. So thanks a lot. And we're excited. We're going to go bioactive, guys. So keep subscribed to the channel, you're going to see some videos coming your way.